Hi, my name is Marcella Brief, and my son Stephen Brief has autism and he was born with it, obviously. Stephen was born in 1994 at a time when autism was not widely recognized. So we didn't exactly know what he was what he had until he collapsed at 8 years old. His father joined the United States Army after September 11th, 2003 happened, and my husband joined the Army. We were going to lose our medical insurance, and so my husband decided to join the Army. The problem was Stephen started regressing because of the change in routine and no dad. So he ended up in a hospital. He attempted suicide at 8 years old and wound up at Kennedy Krieger Medical Center in Baltimore, Maryland, which is affiliated with Johns Hopkins. And he ended up spending a year and a half in a facility. Still doesn't have too many memories of it because he is completely blacked out from it. He went nonverbal, meaning that he was talking and in a normal second grade classroom, and slowly regressed to a point of worse than a Rain Man situation, completely nonverbal. All he did was rock day in and day out. It wasn't until I contacted Patty Dobbs-Gross with North Star Dogs that we had some hope. Patty put us in touch with, or I put her in touch with the hospital, and between her and the hospital, they worked to get us a service dog. She, at the time, was the only autism trainer in the world. Training dogs for autism, and I knew, because Stephen loved dogs so much and had always wanted one, that it would work. Enter Max. Max was a beautiful golden retriever, full public access, trained in search and rescue. The one thing with autism that is difficult to train for is you never know what day-to-day is for the kids. Stephen can have a really good day and he can be on top of it, and another day he will have had a dream, or he will have had a thought, or he will have a moment when something hits him and it's out of the blue and there's no relevance to it. It just happens, and he turns around, and before Max he would rage. Even being in school, he would rage and have those moments. After Kennedy Krieger, however, with Max, he pulled himself together and had managed to, I credit Max with pulling Stephen out of the hospital. That shell of a little boy who was sitting rocking in a horrible, horrible situation, and all of a sudden Max comes into his life, and there's just this spark of happiness and joy. And one of the first outings that we had, I know I'm all over the place, there's so much to say in a video. One of the most amazing joys that we had with Max was taking Max during his training. I had been trained by a multitude of trainers at that point. Max was about 6 months old already. I had been trained by 5 or 6 different people. And I got a chance to actually see my son interact with strangers for the very first time. He approached people and said, "Hey, I'm Stephen, and this is my dog Max. Do you want to pet him?" And it was the very first time in 9 years of my son's life, 8 to 9 years of my son's life, that he actually spoke to a stranger. And from that moment, it just continued. He just flourished and blossomed. But training never stops. And part of the reason training never stops is because the dogs have to be adaptable. And to have a dog who is fully trained to do one thing, sit, stay, that's one thing that you teach them. But to have a dog who can recognize when your son is having a down time and come and bring a toy into his lap, or recognize because he's bonded with that child or that young man, he gets bonded